The coke splashed across her blouse, cold and humiliating. The room fell into a dead silence. No one moved, no one spoke. But what Kayla did next would change everything, not just for her, but for the entire company. The office cafeteria buzzed with noise and casual conversation until that very moment. Harmonix Tech Incorporated was a top-tier Silicon Valley firm, known for its innovation, its ultra-modern glass offices, and its highly competitive culture. But beneath the surface, the air was thick with silent biases, cliques, and unspoken hierarchies. Now, let me take you there, to that exact moment. Picture a sleek, glass-walled cafeteria, flooded with sunlight, filled with employees chatting over overpriced salads and sparkling water. In a far corner sat Kayla Harmon. She looked like just another intern, tucked away in anonymity. But oh, how wrong they were. She wore no designer suit, no flashy jewelry, just a white blouse, jeans, and quiet confidence. She didn't demand attention, but her presence, if you really looked, was commanding. She was there with purpose. Kayla wasn't just some intern. She was on a mission, and this mission, it started with deception. She and her husband, David Harmon, the CEO himself, had crafted the plan in secret. Kayla had insisted. If she really wanted to understand the company's culture, she couldn't just read reports or sit in boardrooms. She had to walk the halls, hear the real voices, feel the silence. Live it. You sure you want to do this? David had asked her that morning, as she pulled on her worn sneakers. Absolutely, Kayla replied. I need to see what they don't say when you're in a room. So, she changed her last name, invented a background. She was now Kayla M., from a nonprofit internship program in Chicago, just a temporary intern observing the workplace for a diversity study. HR wasn't on the secret. Everyone else? Completely in the dark. She blended in effortlessly, too effortlessly. Her first day, she walked through the tech floor. Some smiled, most didn't. She tried small talk in the elevator, got silence in return. A few junior employees were kind, but most treated her like furniture. She made notes, quietly. By day 2, she was already seeing patterns. Microaggressions, cold stares, dismissive tone when she asked questions. And then came the break room incident, the spark. Around noon, she sat quietly in the cafeteria, nibbling on her turkey sandwich. The space was buzzing. Laughter, footsteps, coffee machines hissing. Then the atmosphere changed. In walked Megan Brooks. You could hear her before you saw her, heels clicking like a metronome of arrogance. She wore a silk blouse, designer slacks, an attitude that screamed entitlement. Megan wasn't just any employee. She was the head of product design, the darling of the C-suite, known for her wit, her style, and her subtle cruelty. Her perfectly manicured nails tapped rapidly on her phone. She didn't see Kayla, or maybe she did and didn't care. That's worse. She swung open the fridge door, grabbed a Coke, and pivoted dramatically. In doing so, her salad container slipped from her tote and crashed to the floor. Without hesitation, Kayla stood. Hey, do you need help with that? Megan turned, slowly, her eyes scanning Kayla with disdain. Do I look like I need help from you? Kayla blinked. Just thought. And that's when it happened. Splash. Megan tilted the Coke with a flick of her wrist. It was so deliberate, so sharp. The soda hit Kayla's blouse and spread like ink on paper. A gasp rose across the room. One intern dropped their fork. Another choked on a laugh. But no one moved. No one intervened. Megan leaned in. Her voice was low. Poison. Next time, stay in your lane. Kayla looked down. Sticky soda clung to the fabric of her blouse. But she didn't flinch. She looked up, met Megan's gaze. And in that moment, without yelling, without crying, she made a decision. Kayla reached for a napkin, calmly dabbed at the stains, and turned to leave. No words. No drama. Just a quiet exit that held more power than any scream ever could. You see, the real power in that room didn't wear designer heels. It didn't need to throw a Coke to feel big. It walked out silently, already planning what would come next. No one knew it yet, but Harmonix had just been shaken. The woman Megan humiliated wasn't just another face in the crowd. She was a storm, and that storm was about to cleanse the rot they didn't even realize was eating them alive. Not with revenge, but with reckoning. You know what's funny? Most people thought Kayla was just another intern. Quiet, polite, keeps to herself. A diversity hire. Maybe someone from one of those community outreach programs companies use to boost their numbers on paper. Nobody asked her where she came from. Nobody asked why she was really there. But here's the part they didn't know. Kayla wasn't just visiting this office. She helped build it, not brick by brick, but value by value. Before Harmonix became a billion-dollar company, back when David was still writing code in cafes and pitching investors in his garage, it was Kayla who coached him on how to lead people, not just build products. She helped him design their very first employee handbook. She was the one who pushed for diversity programs, ethical guidelines, and culture-first hiring. But over the years, as the company exploded with success, Kayla had stepped back. She wanted David to lead on his own, and he did. But somewhere along the line, something got lost. And now, here she was, watching the company they built from the inside, disguised as a stranger. Her notebook, hidden in her laptop sleeve, was already filling with observations. Janice in finance won't make eye contact. Engineering team jokes about quota hires at lunch. Marketing head said I speak so well, like it's a surprise. Little things. But those little things, they added up. You see, racism doesn't always kick down the door screaming. Sometimes it tiptoes in, smiling, holding a latte. It disguises itself as jokes, as just being honest, as not a big deal. But Kayla saw it all. And at the center of it, Megan. Oh, Megan wasn't just a bad apple. She was the queen bee of a toxic hive, the kind who used charm as a weapon and confidence as camouflage. Kayla watched her for 3 days, how she interrupted people mid-sentence, dismissed junior staff's ideas, talked over women in meetings, and reserved her smiles only for men in suits. And no one challenged her. Why? Because Megan delivered results. She had the numbers. She had awards on her wall. She brought in clients. And people like that, they get protected, excused, even worshipped. But that Coke wasn't an isolated moment. It was a final straw in a long line of behaviors that everyone saw and chose to ignore. Now let's talk about Luis. Luis was the only one who treated Kayla like a person. He was new, soft-spoken, always willing to help. The kind of guy who refilled the printer paper even when it wasn't his job. He sat with her on her first day and said, "If you need help with anything, don't hesitate. I know what it's like to be new and ignored." He reminded Kayla of her younger brother. Quiet, observant, too kind for corporate politics. "Why are you doing this internship?" Luis had asked her. Kayla smiled. "Let's just say, I'm here to learn what this place is really made of." He chuckled. "You picked a strange company for that." She tilted her head. "What do you mean?" Luis hesitated, then leaned in. "This place looks pretty on the outside, but not everyone's welcome at the table." And that confirmed it. It wasn't just Kayla imagining things. The culture had shifted, poisoned from within. And it wasn't just Megan. It was a silence that enabled people like Megan to thrive. Every night, Kayla went home and told David what she saw. But she hadn't told him about the Coke. "Not yet. You sure you want to keep going with this?" David asked one evening. Kayla stared out the window, thinking. "Yes," she said. "I want to see who they are when they think no one important is watching." And so she went back in, each day, with her stained blouse tucked into her bag and a new clean one on her back. She listened, observed, watched how people joked in hallways when they thought no one was around, watched who got invited to strategy meetings, and who was left out. At one point, someone in HR joked about too much color in one department while she was making copies. They didn't even flinch when they said it. Another executive winked at her and called her sunshine in a tone that made her skin crawl. But Kayla stayed calm, always calm, because she wasn't here to blow up. She was here to build a case. And now, her notebook was full. Her mind was sharp. Her heart, focused. She wasn't angry. She was ready to show everyone at Harmonix exactly who she was. Not with threats, not with shouting, but with truth, delivered in the most unexpected way, at the most unexpected moment. Because soon, the mask would come off. And when it did, some people would clap, others would panic, but no one would forget it. It was Friday, town hall day at Harmonix Tech. For most employees, it was just another company-wide meeting with charts, metrics, and speeches that dragged on a little too long. For executives, it was a chance to show off, to be seen, to remind the little people who was in charge. But for Kayla, it was the day she stopped pretending. The morning started like any other. She wore another plain blouse, this time powder blue, and tied her curls back with a simple scarf. But under that calm exterior, her heart pounded like a war drum, not from fear, from purpose. She stood in front of the mirror before leaving and whispered to herself, "Let's show them who you really are." By now, the company was buzzing about her. She'd become that intern, the quiet one. People whispered in corners about the Coke incident. Megan, of course, had brushed it off. "She's overreacting. I barely spilled anything. She was in my way. She should be grateful we even let her in." And yet, Megan was nervous. Her eyes followed Kayla all week, not with guilt, but suspicion, like a predator unsure if it had attacked prey or something else entirely. In the massive glass-walled auditorium, over 400 employees gathered. Cameras were set up to live-stream the town hall to global branches. Executives sat in the front row, Megan included, legs crossed, hair perfect, confidence restored. She was scrolling on her phone, smiling at something, probably a meme, or her own reflection. David Harmon stepped onto the stage. The crowd quieted. He was charismatic, direct, polished. His speeches were always tight, data-driven, and hopeful. "Thank you all for another quarter growth," he began. "We've expanded into 3 new markets. Product engagement is up 32%. And our new AI suite just got nominated for an industry award." The audience applauded lightly. But then he paused. His tone shifted. "Today, I want to share something a little more personal," he said, scanning the room. "Someone's been with us this week, quietly, observing, learning, listening, and what she discovered has changed the way I view this company." He motioned to the third row. "Please welcome my wife, Kayla Harmon." The room froze. Phones stopped clicking. Megan's smile vanished. One guy dropped his coffee cup. Kayla stood slowly, not with arrogance, but with knowing. She walked to the stage, her heels quiet but powerful. Her presence filled the room without saying a word. Even the CEO's assistant looked shocked. Even HR looked confused. Kayla took the microphone, turned to face the room full of stunned faces, and began. "This past week, I've been called sweetheart, ignored in meetings, laughed behind my back, and had soda poured on my chest, all because you didn't know who I was. But I knew exactly who you were." There was no anger in her voice, just calm fire, the kind that burns quietly, then suddenly consumes everything. She continued, "I watch the way you treat people who don't wear suits, the way you only listen to voices that sound like yours, the way you tolerate bullying, microaggressions, and outright cruelty because it's easier than standing up." People looked around, uncomfortable. Some sank in their seats. Megan stared straight ahead, frozen. "You judge me by the color of my skin, by my clothes, by your assumptions. But I judge you too, by your actions, by your silence, by your complicity." She paused, then looked directly at Megan, not by name, but with piercing clarity. "One person poured Coke on my blouse, but the real stain here is on this company's culture. And that stain has been ignored for far too long." A heavy silence hung in the air until someone clapped. "Luis." Then another. Then it spread like wildfire. The entire room was applauding, except Megan. She sat stone still, hands clenched, face pale. She couldn't run. She couldn't undo what she'd done. She was no longer the queen bee. She was exposed. Kayla looked back at David, who gave her the softest, proudest nod. She ended with one sentence that would later be printed on company posters and quoted in leadership meetings for years. "No one forgets how you made them feel when they had no power, and no one should fear being themselves at work." With that, she handed the mic back to David, stepped down from the stage, and walked back to her seat, not with vengeance, but with victory. Because when the mask comes off, people see your truth. And when your truth is power, no Coke, no smirk, no silence can hide from it. The applause had faded, but the tension? It lingered like smoke after fire. By the time employees left the town hall, Harmonix wasn't the same company it had been an hour earlier. Something in the air had shifted. People weren't just talking about Kayla. They were rethinking every hallway conversation, every joke made behind closed doors, every look they gave someone they thought was just an intern. And at the center of the brewing storm, Megan Brooks. Megan tried to play it cool. She marched back to her office with her usual swagger, pretending Kayla's speech hadn't rattled her. But anyone watching closely could see the tremble in her fingers as she typed. Her team avoided her eye. The hallway chatter she usually enjoyed, gone. That same afternoon, Kayla and David met with the HR department behind closed doors. And what started as a culture audit quickly became a full-scale internal investigation. It wasn't personal. It was professional. You see, Kayla hadn't just observed. She documented every smirk, every insult, every moment of dismissal and disrespect. She had screenshots, transcripts, conversations that took place in Slack channels and office hallways. And when she handed it over to HR, they didn't know whether to be shocked or ashamed. What stunned them most, she wasn't the only one. Kayla's presence had awakened others. Quiet employees, staff who long felt invisible. They started coming forward, one by one, with their own stories. Some had stayed silent for months, even years. But now they had someone powerful on their side. Someone who knew what it felt like to be silenced, and they weren't going to stay quiet anymore. One account came from a junior developer named Amira. She spoke about Megan's constant eye rolls whenever she voiced an idea. How Megan once told her to stick to coding, not creativity. Another came from Ravi in accounting, who was always left off lunch invites, even when his entire team went. There were jokes in emails, snide remarks in chat threads, performance reviews filled with coded language like lacks polish or needs cultural fit. HR compiled all. The evidence was undeniable. And so Megan was summoned. She strutted into David's office like she always did, with a smirk that suggested she was ready to spin the story in her favor. "Hey, David," she said, as if nothing unusual had happened. David didn't smile. Kayla sat across from him, calm and collected. HR reps were also present, and the air was heavy. "Megan," David began, "we've received some concerning reports." She raised an eyebrow. "Oh, about what?" Kayla didn't speak. She didn't need to. The files on the table did the talking. When Megan glanced at the folder with her name on it, her expression shifted. "These can't be serious," she scoffed. "I didn't know she was your wife. I would never have." David's voice cut in low and sharp. "So if she wasn't my wife, the behavior would have been okay?" Megan stammered. "That's not what I meant. It was a misunderstanding. I mean, maybe I was a little harsh, but it wasn't just one moment," Kayla said softly. "It was a pattern. And it's not just about me." HR added, "We have over a dozen corroborated accounts. Emails, messages, direct testimony." And just like that, the smirk melted off Megan's face. She tried everything, denial, deflection, even tears. But it was too late. Within the hour, her badge was deactivated. She was escorted out by security. No dramatic scene. No grand exit. Just silence. A quiet end for someone who had once made everyone else feel small. But firing Megan wasn't the end. It was the beginning. David and Kayla held an emergency meeting with the senior leadership team that evening. What came out of that meeting would reshape Harmonix forever. They called it Project Ethos, a full-scale reform of the company's culture and accountability systems. It included anonymous reporting tools with real follow-up mechanisms, diversity, equity, and inclusion (DI), officers hired across departments, quarterly cultural audits with mandatory participation, new onboarding programs that emphasized empathy, emotional intelligence, and bias awareness, leadership coaching for all department heads, focused not on profits, but people, and most importantly, a zero-tolerance policy for disrespect, no matter how high-performing the employee. Kayla didn't just want a few apologies. She wanted systemic change, and she led it, publicly, boldly. She wasn't the hidden observer anymore. She was now the company's newly appointed chief ethics and culture officer. Some employees were skeptical at first. Was it performative? A PR stunt? But then they saw her in action. She showed up to team meetings, hosted open-door office hours, had lunch with interns. She asked tough questions. She listened. She cared. She even brought Luis into her new department, promoting him to internal culture liaison. She said, "You saw me when others didn't. Now, let's help others be seen." As for Megan, she tried to post a rant on LinkedIn. Corporate cancel culture is out of control. Fired over a joke. Be careful who you spill soda on, folks. But it didn't land. No one from Harmonix liked it. No one commented. The silence on her post said everything. Because the real ones knew this wasn't canceling. This was consequence. And sometimes, when a mask slips, you don't get a second chance to put back on. 6 months later, if you walked into Harmonix Tech, you'd feel it, not see it, feel it. The air was lighter. The voices were louder. The hallways that once echoed with quiet tension now hummed with laughter, real conversations, and genuine connection. But make no mistake, this transformation didn't happen overnight. It was built, one truth at a time. And it started with the woman who everyone thought was just an intern, Kayla Harmon. Now, her name was on the door of the company's newly created Culture and Ethics Department, etched in silver beside the title, Chief Culture Officer. Every Monday morning, Kayla hosted what the company called Coffee and Candor. It wasn't a seminar or a lecture. It was a circle. No tables, no podiums, just employees, from interns to VPs, sitting in a room, sharing what they felt, what they experienced, and what they hoped would change. People cried. People admitted mistakes. People found healing. And most importantly, they listened. One of the first stories came from Amira, the junior developer who had once been shut down by Megan. With Kayla's mentorship, she pitched an idea to the product team. This time, they listened, really listened. The idea? It saved the company nearly $300,000 in annual design costs. She got promoted within 3 months. Ravi from accounting, he became the lead on the company's new mentorship network, guiding underrepresented hires as they navigated corporate life. He'd always felt like a ghost in the system. Now he was a leader. And Luis? He stood tall in his new role as internal culture liaison, a title no one had heard before, but one that soon became the heartbeat of the company. He designed onboarding experiences that made people feel seen on day one. He and Kayla worked side by side, two quiet observers who had become loud advocates. One afternoon, Kayla surprised the staff with an art installation in the main lobby. It was called The Stain. Behind a pane of museum-grade glass hung the white blouse she wore the day Megan poured Coke on her. The soda stain still visible, preserved like a scar that never quite faded. Beneath it, a plaque read, "The stain that exposed the truth. The moment we chose who we really are." Visitors stopped. Employees stood in silence. Some teared up, and just across from that installation, a large mural painted by local artists titled Voices Matter. It featured vibrant illustrations of employees, smiling, working, laughing. Every person was different, every story unique. And together, they formed the face of Harmonix. The company didn't just change how it looked. It changed who it was. Job applications soared. Exit rates dropped. Engagement surveys showed a 70% increase in employee satisfaction. Productivity went up, but not from fear or pressure, from purpose. People weren't working to survive anymore. They were working to build something better. Kayla's name began circulating beyond Harmonix. Conferences called. Panels invited her to speak. Harvard Business Review published an article titled "The Power of Being Underestimated," and Kayla's face was on the cover, but she stayed grounded because none of this was about fame. It was about what happened when people finally stopped being afraid to speak up, and more importantly, when someone actually listened. One afternoon, a new intern named Zoe nervously approached Kayla in the break room. "You probably don't remember me," she said, "but I saw your town hall speech on YouTube. It's why I applied here." Kayla smiled. "Zoe, that's exactly why I gave that speech." And then they sat and had lunch. Just two women, 2 sandwiches, and a shared understanding of how powerful a single voice can be. Kayla still walked the halls, still took handwritten notes, still sat quietly in the back of meetings before offering an insight that would change the whole direction of the conversation. And employees? They paid attention now, because the lesson Harmonix had learned the hard way was this: never underestimate the quiet one, because the quiet one might be carrying the truth you don't want to face. She might be the mirror that shows you who you really are. Or worse, for some people, she might be the CEO's wife. But more importantly, she might be the architect of your reckoning. The Coke incident was no longer spoken of with shame. It was remembered as a spark that lit the fire of reform. The moment the company woke up, and in a world full of performative change and corporate slogans, Harmonix became the rare story of real transformation, not because they had to, but because someone made them want to. So next time you're in a workplace where someone is quiet, different, or overlooked, you might want to think twice, because you never know who's watching, and you never know who they might become.